All right, today we're going to break down an ancient moral code that's, well, it's way more than just a list of rules. This thing actually defined who a people were, and get this, it tied their actions directly to the fate of the very land they lived on. It's a really powerful list of prohibitions that's shaped cultures for thousands of years, so let's unpack it. So, before we even get to a single law, the text just drops this line: I am the Lord your God. It's simple, but it's powerful. You see this phrase pop up again and again, and it's basically the ultimate because I said so. This isn't a code based on, what makes sense to humans or what's good for society. Nope, it's presented as a divine decree. Full stop. Okay, so here's how we're going to walk through this. We'll follow the text's own logic, breaking it down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at its core command, which is basically be different. Then, we'll see how that plays out in the family and then in the wider community. And finally, and this is the really wild part, we're going to uncover this deep connection between following these laws and the purity of the land itself. All right, part 1, a command to be different. What's so striking here is that this whole thing doesn't kick off with a list of don'ts. Not at all. It starts with this much bigger idea, a command to be completely, fundamentally different from everyone else. It's all about forging a brand new identity, legally and culturally, that stands in total contrast to the big empires of the day. And this slide really lays it all out, doesn't it? It frames the whole situation as this crystal clear choice. Over on one side, you've got the ways of Egypt and Canaan, the powerful, established customs. And on the other, you have this brand new set of divine laws. The text is basically demanding a total break from the past. You can't have it both ways. It's a full commitment to a new way of life. So why make this choice? What's the motivation? Well, it's presented as a matter of life and death, really. The text says if you obey these laws, you will live by them. So obedience isn't just about, staying out of trouble with God. The source frames it as the very thing that makes the community live and thrive. These laws are their life source. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Now we move on to the specific prohibitions. And the code starts right where you'd expect, with the family. This is all about drawing some very clear, very rigid lines around what relationships are acceptable. So, to really get these rules, we've got to ask the question on the screen. What exactly is a close relative according to this text? And it doesn't leave you guessing. It doesn't leave it up to interpretation. Instead, it builds this really specific, structured definition through the list of prohibitions we're about to see. The first group of prohibitions deals with what you could call the vertical line of a family. Straight up and down. This covers your mother and your granddaughters. But here's where it gets interesting. It extends that same logic to relationships by marriage. A stepmother or a daughter-in-law. They're treated with the exact same level of prohibition. So this whole structure is based on your role in the family, not just bloodlines. Then, the code moves sideways, horizontally, covering sisters, aunts, and the wives of your close male relatives. And what's amazing here is just how specific it gets. Take the rule about a wife's sister. It's not a blanket no. The prohibition is only in effect while your first wife is still alive. It just goes to show you this is a legal system that's incredibly concerned with precise social and family structures. Okay, so from the immediate family, we're now going to broaden our scope to the prohibitions that governed the whole community. These rules take that same idea of purity and apply it to how people interact socially and how they worship. So this section moves beyond just family structure to forbid actions that were seen as totally disruptive to the social and moral fabric. The source prohibits adultery with a neighbor's wife, for example, and any relations with a woman during her menstrual cycle. It also forbids sexual relations between 2 men, which the text itself calls detestable, and sexual relations with an animal, which it labels a perversion. And just to be clear, we're using that direct language from the source itself to show you exactly how it frames these acts. The text also zooms in on this one specific ritual practice from Canaan, associated with the name Molech. The source describes this as a form of child sacrifice, and it's forbidden in the absolute strongest terms. Why? Because it's seen as a direct attack on the divine, something that would profane the name of your God. And that brings us to our final section, which is all about the consequences. And this is where the code takes a really fascinating turn, because it connects human morality directly to the physical world, to the environment itself. This slide does a great job of laying out the chain of events described in the text, and it's a pretty radical idea. It all starts with the forbidden actions of the people who lived there before. But these actions, they don't just hurt other people. No, they're said to physically pollute, defile the land itself. And because of that, God punishes the land, which leads to the final step. The land literally expels the people living on it.
And here it is, the core warning. The metaphor here is just so powerful and visceral. In this worldview, the land isn't just some passive stage for human drama. Not at all. It's an active player, and it has a moral breaking point. And when that point is crossed, it reacts by, in the text's own words, vomiting out the people who live there. Wow.
And here's a really crucial point. This isn't presented as some kind of ethnic or tribal law. According to the source, these rules are tied to the territory. They apply to everybody living on that land, whether you're native-born or a foreigner. The standard of behavior is connected to the place, not where you came from. So what about the individual? What happens if one person breaks these foundational rules? Well, the consequence is stark. It's absolute. The text says that person must be cut off from their people. And that's not just a punishment, it's a complete severance from the community, a social and spiritual exile. You're out. You're an outsider. So we're left with this really powerful idea. I mean, today we tend to put a wall between our ethics and our environment, right? But this ancient code, it presents a world where they are totally intertwined, where the very soil under your feet holds you accountable. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How have foundational texts like this one shaped, and maybe how do they still shape, our understanding of that deep, deep connection between how we live and where we live?